Hello again, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at a very affordable 35mm rangefinder camera. This one hails from the Soviet era, the Cold War era, made in the USSR, and it actually was made in a factory in Ukraine, in the city of Kharkiv. This is of course the FED, and this is FED4. To be more specific, it's the FED4B because it does have an advanced handle on it. The earlier FED-A versions didn't have the handle, they just had a crank that you had to turn to advance the film and cock the shutter at the same time. It does feature interchangeable lens mount. This is the Leica thread mount, the L39 mount. So it literally just unscrews. There's a range of interchangeable lenses for these cameras. This is the Industar 61, which was the standard lens for this camera. And this is a 53mm 2.8. Rather nice. Mainly metal with a little bit of plastic in it. Closest focusing is 1 meter through to infinity. Front of that you can see we have a depth of field scale, and at the very front we have the aperture control ring. It is click stopped, but you can put it in between stops as well. You can see the aperture blades inside the lens. Quite a nice lens, and then to reattach it, it literally just screws back in. He says, if you can do it. There you go. Just screws, and there's your focus control. There. On the front we also have a self-timer. So this is the old-fashioned way of taking selfies. You can see there's a little arrow down here. You push that all the way around. Check your focus and your composition before you start, and then just push the selfie button. Totally mechanical, this camera. There's no batteries in it. It's not alarm batteries for anything. And there you hear the shutter firing, and this will just carry on until it gets down to the bottom. And it stops. Up here we have a flash connection. This is the standard PC cable connection for the camera. At the top here we have the viewfinder, which is for this lens. If you want to use different focal lengths, you need to get the turret sort of viewfinder that fits on the top. We have the rangefinder window, which is here, as you can see, and we also have a selection of selenium cells. This is what's powering the internal light meter. This camera does have a light meter built into it, solar powered via these cells. It's quite a tall camera, but that does mean that there's quite a bit of it to get hold of grip wise. You can get all of your fingers on it, and it's quite a solid grip, which I quite like about it. But it is, I don't think it's the best looking of the rangefinders. On the top plate we have the film advance. You can see the shutter dial turns. So like most of these sort of cameras, don't change the shutter speed until you've advanced the film. Only then can you change the shutter speed. And you do that by lifting this lever up in the middle and then pointing it to the speed that you desire. In the centre here we have a film reminder tab. So this literally you can just turn until it lines up with the type of film that you're shooting as a reminder. So we have black and white, we have indoor lighting, and daylight. This is for colour negative film, whether it's balanced for inside use or outside use, depending on colour temperature. Here we see the shutter release button, threaded for a cable release, and surrounding this there is a collar, and this is how you would release the sprocket drive internally when it comes to rewinding the film. In normal use it's towards the C position, but then to rewind the film you've got to push it down and turn it so that it's pointing towards the B position. B in Russian apparently is R. It's quite difficult to get to. I've got big old sausage fingers and I struggle to get my fingers into there to turn it. Something I don't like about this camera. On this side you see it's all exposure meter, and the way it works is very simple. You see when you turn this dial, the red arrow moves. Depending on the amount of light, the white arrow will move. So you basically line the red arrow up with the white one. You set your film speed here. This is marked ASA, which is the same as ISO. It's got rather peculiar markings on it because it relates to the Russian film speed system, which was called GOST, GOSD, and it is 90% of ISO. So 100 would be in ISO would be 90 in GOST, 200 would be 180, and 400 would be 360. So you would set your speed on here. This just turns. It's a little bit stiff on this one. But yeah, you just set your speed onto there. So say I was shooting on 200, I'd set that to 180. Like I say, you line this up with the needle, the sun's gone in, and then you can read off your shutter speeds on the outer edge and the corresponding aperture on the inside edge. So you can see there we've got a 60 to f4, 30 to 5.6, 15 to f8. They all produce the same exposure. So line it up and then read off the exposure. Very easy to use. Uncoupled, so you have to set the shutter speed and set the corresponding aperture. There's no coupling involved. On the back, as I've shown, we have the Made in the USSR emblem. We have the manufacturer's emblem, and we also have the viewfinder. And this is got dioptic adjustment. By turning this, you can match it to your eyesight. Very handy if you use glasses. It is quite small, and being a rangefinder, there is the green patch in the middle. You can just see it there. So you line up the two images so that the one's on top of the other, and then you know that bit's in focus. To rewind, once you've moved this lever back to the B position, you then turn this here to do your rewind, because there's no room on the top to put a crank. And this I really did not like at all. I have put a film through this camera, and I did not like the rewind bit up there or this part down here. I found that really could be quite painful on my fingers and the thumbs. On the bottom, tripod mount, two catches. So on this camera, like a lot of them, the whole back comes off. So let me just turn these, and then the whole back can be removed. So here we see the back. There's the pressure plate for the film to keep it flat. There are some markings in there. I'm not quite sure what they refer to. If anybody knows, drop me a note in the comment. There are different variations of both the A and the B models. There are minor variations in each of the ranges. And these were made, this particular one was made from 66 to 1980, I think, so had quite a long lifespan. You can see a fresh film goes in here, pretty standard interior of a 35mm camera. Here you can see the shutter. Here's your drive sprockets, engages with the holes in the film. And here's your take-up spool. This is removable to aid film loading. It's similar to some other cameras that I've shown on the channel, in that it has a little claw down here that hooks into the film and then drags the film around to get it wound onto the take-up spiral. You can't get a film cassette in this side, so you can't go from film cassette into film cassette with this one. But this is removable for loading. It's a bit of a pain for loading, to be honest, getting it behind that spring. I found that quite difficult when I did shoot a film through it, so I'm not going to demonstrate loading one of these. You can see the shutter. To check the shutter, remove the lens and shine a bright torch through it and look for pinholes. I tend to find that they form along these sort of edges near where these curtains have got these end pieces on them. That's one curtain on that side, that's the other curtain on that side. and it's the gap, the size of the gap, that determines the shutter speed. The shutter always moves at the same speed. It's just the width of the gap that determines the exposure. The wider the gap, the longer the exposure is going to be. But yeah, it's worth checking them for pinholes before you shoot film through it. If it's a new camera to you, if you know it's okay, then that's not really a problem. Once you've loaded your film in, you can put your back on. There's no foams or anything to deteriorate on these. It's got a light trap in there. Light doesn't really go around 180-degree corners. And you can lock the back into place like so. And that is about it. It's a very, very basic camera. The A version did have lugs on the body. This B version didn't. So if you're looking for one of these, try and make sure you get it with a case. Because of the selenium cells, you always want to try and keep the cells covered when not in use, because they do deteriorate over time. These ones are pretty good actually, and they seem to be working just fine. But if it's just been left out on a shelf or something, these will deteriorate. So ideally, get one that comes with a case as well, because at least that way, you've got the carrying strap, and you can also protect the camera and the cells when not in use. I did run a film through it. I run part of a test film through it. If I can find it. It's down here, so you can see there's the start of the film. It's only black and white. I shot plants in the garden, so there's nothing there worth printing really. But you can see the spacing is okay. The spacing is fine between each exposure. And this is done using the built-in light meter, so you can see it's working pretty well. It's fairly consistent results. So overall, I'm quite happy with the functionality of the camera. I did open the back early when I was rewinding the film like an idiot. I thought it had already come off, but it hadn't. So I defogged these last couple of frames on here. A bit unfortunate, but yeah, it just went to prove that it's not chewing the sprockets. It's not eating the film. The distance between each exposure is even. So all in all, quite a nice working camera. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Comments, questions, queries, etc. down below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care. Bye.